Hello again everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. In this video, we're going to discuss artificial intelligence, or AI, something that I'm sure many of you are getting quite tired of hearing about nowadays because AI is everywhere, whether you like it or not. But the thing is, I wanted to discuss AI as it pertains to Linux. Surprisingly, we can actually use AI to benefit our Linux career. We could use it to come up with code to solve a problem, or even troubleshoot a system administrator related job. And in this video, we're going to take a look at exactly that, how AI can be used to help us troubleshoot our Linux installations and add value to our Linux experience in general. Of course, I'm going to give you guys some general information about AI as well, especially my thoughts on the subject. The thing is, AI is not perfect, and I'll show you some examples of how imperfect it happens to be shortly. But if we approach it with reasonable expectations, it can very much benefit our Linux career. And the thing is, due to general AI fatigue, I wasn't sure whether or not I'd even do a video about AI at all on this channel, but I guess it's inevitable that I'd have to cover it at some point. So what I decided to do is create a video on how Linux users can make practical use of AI. So what I'll be doing is going over 10 examples of using AI to benefit your overall Linux experience. We'll look into using it to explain Linux-related technologies, troubleshooting, or even generating config files we can use for various purposes. It's going to be a lot of fun. And to start us off, in the next section, I'll give you my thoughts about AI in general, and then from there, we'll see the examples. So without any further hesitation, let's get started. So let's get into my overall thoughts about AI and some tips for using it responsibly. And although I'm sure many of you are sick and tired of hearing about AI nowadays, the truth is, using AI can actually help us wrangle our Linux systems and provide a significant boost to our productivity. As we'll explore throughout the video, I'll go over some examples that I think will make it clear just how it could benefit you. Another thing to consider is that AI isn't always accurate, and that's due to how new of a concept it happens to be. For an example of this, I decided to ask ChatGPT a random Linux-related question. I asked it how to enable all repositories with unattended upgrades in Debian. Of course, it's arguable whether or not you should actually set up unattended upgrades that way, but I was curious what AI would come back with. In this case, the code that was provided to me was completely invalid, and when I implemented it on a test server, it actually killed the unattended upgrades process altogether. After that, I was curious if another chat agent would give me a better answer, so I asked Claude AI the exact same question. And this time, the information that I received was not only correct, but it worked perfectly. And that leads right into another important thing to consider, that not all chat agents are created equally. In fact, some will work better in certain situations than others. Personally, I use both ChatGPT and Claude AI, and I find that their pros and cons pretty much make them equal. And for that reason, I regularly use one to check the other. For another example of this, I recently asked Claude AI to create an Ansible playbook that would remove LibreOffice and all related packages from my workstations. I wanted to do this since I use the Flatpak version of LibreOffice, so I didn't really see a reason to also have the distribution packages installed. I just wanted to use the Flatpak version. So when I asked Claude AI to create an Ansible playbook to remove all LibreOffice packages, this is what it came back with. Now, it's possible that this code might have worked just fine, but I knew right away that it was overkill. You don't really need to perform this many steps to simply remove all LibreOffice packages. I was able to accomplish the exact same thing in Ansible by simply doing this. Just one play and I was done. But the main point here is that anything you get back from AI will be correct most of the time, but every now and then it might not be the best way to do something, and in some cases might be wrong altogether. Now at this point it might seem like I'm being overly critical of AI and that I might not like it, but actually I really do like it and I find it useful. But the thing is, on this channel, it's my goal to present technologies to you as they actually are without any unnecessary fluff. And the fact is, AI is very helpful, but it's just not perfect. But where exactly does it fit in? What benefits does AI provide to Linux users and administrators? What I'm going to do right now is go over 10 different examples of how AI can benefit you as a Linux system administrator. So let's dive in. Tip 1. Explain Linux concepts. My first tip is that AI can help you understand Linux concepts. Now, of course, for those of you that already use AI, you probably already do this, but this subject is a good starting point. And the thing is, Linux in general is a huge topic. There's a ginormous number of things to learn, and no one will ever learn everything. In addition, new technologies are coming out constantly, and existing technologies are often refined and improved upon. As Linux continues down its path of dominance, you may hear about something in the news or need some clarification on something. And this is a task that's easy for AI to help us out with. For example, you can ask AI what the difference is between two technologies that serve the same goal and which you should use for a particular purpose. Often, your AI chat agent will present a table that'll show you the differences between related technologies, helping you make a decision on which to use within your environment. For example, you could consider asking AI to explain the difference between a cron job and a systemd timer. And if you don't even know what a systemd timer is in the first place, then you can simply ask AI to explain the concept to you. Of course, I do have videos on this channel that cover systemd timers, but if you need a quick answer, then AI is a really great way to do it. You can also ask AI what command you should use for a particular situation, such as when you need to transfer a file between two servers. You can ask it to give you specific commands that'll serve that purpose, as well as options that you might use to fine-tune the process. And that'll help you formulate a workflow that you can use to get something done. And now it's time for my second tip, which is using AI to explain output that you might receive from terminal commands. As seasoned Linux veterans know, there's a ton of things to keep track of, and when you're working with the command line, you may end up in a situation where you're not sure what exactly you're looking at, and you might need some help to wrap your head around it. For example, let's say you're working with a systemd unit, and you check its status. You might see output that looks something like this. Of course, working with systemd units is something that most Linux administrators learn during their first year on the job, but if you haven't seen output like this before, you can actually copy the output that you receive from a command like this, and then have AI explain what exactly is going on. In addition, anytime you see an error message and you're not sure why you're seeing that message, AI is a good starting point. It can offer you clues as to what you're encountering and give you a list of things to check for. Another example is explaining file permissions. If you're new to Linux, you may need help understanding how a particular permission string impacts file access. If you paste a permission string into AI, it'll be able to break it down for you and explain what exactly is happening. Or if you don't understand permissions at all, you can ask AI to explain the concept in general. Of course, you could always view the video that I have right here on the channel that explains permissions, but in a pinch, AI can give you some general information that you might find helpful. Continuing, let's explore my third tip, and that is you can actually use AI to improve security and harden your servers. For example, if you have SSH installed on a Linux server, you could paste your SSH config right into an AI service and have it give you recommendations on improving its security. It'll look at your config file line by line and look for best practices that you might not be taking advantage of. Of course, be mindful that just because you've used AI to harden a config file, that doesn't necessarily mean your Linux server or workstation is safe from threat actors. Security is a huge subject, and there's countless methods that someone might use to break into your system. If you're a Linux administrator, you'll need to stay vigilant, and using AI won't replace that. But instead, you can use AI as a starting point and look for low-hanging fruit when it comes to things that you can adjust or tweak. Now, this will largely depend on what in particular you're running within your environment, but either way, the information that you get back from AI can help you look for easy tweaks that you can make to help improve your security posture, as well as look for best practices that you might not have enabled yet. Just don't take the information with extreme confidence because, again, threat actors are able to find all kinds of ways to break into systems, but AI can definitely help you not make it as easy for them. Continuing, let's take a look at how AI can help you make sense of logs. Logging is a very complex subject within the Linux world, and it's made more complicated by the fact that not every app logs information the exact same way. There's often a specific format for errors, with information that's going to be specific to a particular service. Sometimes information in log files is obvious. For example, if a log file complains that you've run out of hard disk space, you probably won't need AI to help explain that. As soon as you see an error message that your storage is full, you'll know right then and there what you'll need to do when it comes to cleaning up your files. But beyond the obvious, you'll run into situations constantly where you're seeing an error message for the very first time and you might need help understanding it. For example, consider a web server. If you aren't able to access a web page from your Linux server, you could paste your Apache or Nginx log files into AI and have it help you understand what exactly is going on and why your site isn't working. Just about any logging-related output can be explained by AI, so it's worth a shot. Sorry to interrupt my own video, but I wanted to let you guys know about something really cool that I created recently. I put together the Ultimate Linux Commands Cheat Sheet, a downloadable PDF that covers all the essential Linux commands, as well as some great bash aliases, hardening tips, and other nuggets that I've picked up over the years. For just a $3 donation, it's yours, and it makes a great reference for those of you that work with a terminal. And while you're there, check out my other products at the shop as well. There's all kinds of Linux-themed products there, for example, t-shirts like the Dark Side of the Terminal, there's a classic Debian swirl tee, and even a shirt to warn those around you that you're obsessed with Linux. Every purchase helps keep this channel going. There's a lot of cost involved with editing all the content for you guys, and it also helps justify the amount of caffeine that I go through while I edit these videos. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting Linux learning. I really appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the video. Continuing, let's take a look at how AI can help us with systemd timers. I've covered systemd timers on this channel already, but even if you're well versed in how to create them, there's still a lot of benefit that AI can offer when it comes to this subject. For those of you that have never heard of a systemd timer before, you can use these to schedule tasks to happen at a particular time. If you're already familiar with cron jobs, for example, then the goal of a systemd timer is more or less the same, but systemd timers offer additional benefits and are recommended over cron jobs going forward. But when it comes to creating a systemd timer, it can be confusing. And other times there might be settings where you're not exactly sure what it is that they do. To see this in action, ask an AI service to create a systemd timer for you. Give it the name of the executable that you want it to run, and also describe any detail about how you want it to be handled. For example, let's assume you've written a bash script that backs up your entire system to a storage server. You could give it the path and file name for your script, and then tell it how often you want it to run. For example, you can explain to AI that you want the job to run every hour, and that you might also not want it to run during the first 2 hours of uptime. Another thing that you might want it to do is have the job run even if the server was powered down during the last time it would have triggered. You can explain this criteria to AI, and then it can formulate a systemd timer that'll meet your needs. For tip number 6, let's take a look at how AI can generate a custom bash prompt for your terminal. Not everyone knows that you can even do this at all, but you can actually increase your productivity by customizing your bash prompt and having it include information that's useful to you. For an example of this, consider my bash prompt. Now, I didn't have AI generate this one. I've actually been using it for a number of years now. In my case, I see the current system time, the working directory, the number of jobs I have in the background, and I also have a line return right before the command function, so that way I make better use of my terminal real estate. You can get a lot of use out of a customized prompt, believe it or not. But the thing is though, most people don't customize this and they end up using the bash prompt as is. So if you weren't aware that you could customize your prompt, well, now you know. However, custom bash prompts are a bit hard to create because the options that you'll use are complicated and often are hard to make sense of. To see what I mean, what I'm going to do right now is reveal the code behind my bash prompt. And yes, this is the actual code that is responsible for my bash prompt as of July of 2025. When it comes to seasoned Linux veterans, this is easier to understand, but for the rest of us, it probably looks like a foreign language. But with AI, it becomes incredibly simple to generate a bash prompt. All you have to do is tell your AI service of choice what it is you're looking for and what you want to achieve with it. Perhaps you might tell AI that you want the prompt to be colored green, maybe you want it to include the fully qualified domain name, perhaps a job count, and maybe you even want a new line similar to mine. Basically, you just explain the criteria to your AI service of choice, and then you have it generate a bash prompt for you. And you could test this very easily as well by simply copying and pasting the config right into your terminal prompt, and you should see the changes immediately. Now, you will lose this configuration if you close your terminal and reopen it, so if you like it, you can add it to your bashrc file to make it permanent. Or if you need additional modifications, you could tell AI what changes in particular it needs to make, and then you keep tweaking it until you get something that you want to use. You'd be surprised how much a good bash prompt can enhance your workflow. Another tip that I have for you guys is using AI to solve dependency hell. If you haven't ever heard of that term before, dependency hell refers to situations in which you're working with Linux packages, such as installing something, and then you end up in a situation where you can't get something installed because of unmet dependencies. And sometimes this can be an issue with a repository or an actual problem with the package itself. Now, to be fair, we don't run into dependency hell within the industry nearly as often as we used to. When I first started working with Linux, dependencies weren't handled automatically for you. You had to download each individual package manually and work through this situation yourself. Nowadays, with package managers such as apt, DNF, Pacman, Zypper, and others, this situation is pretty much handled for you. However, dependency hell is not a thing of the past, at least not completely. And although it's rare, you'll absolutely run into it at some point. If you end up running into a situation like this and you're not exactly sure how to deal with it, then AI can help. To make use of this, if you're attempting to install a package and you receive an error during the process, then you can consider pasting that information into your AI agent. The better AI services can even check repositories for you and offer advice that's tailored to the exact thing you're doing. Sometimes a package might have been renamed or replaced with something else. There's a number of different situations that might come up whenever you're working with Linux packaging. In my case, AI has been pretty good when it comes to navigating dependency hell. It's not perfect. But the thing is, I've received helpful advice more often than not. Continuing, let's take a look at command strings. When it comes to Linux, the fact that we could take the output of one command and use it as input for another command is kind of a superpower. Most Linux commands and utilities accept input and then produce output. The input can come from you directly, or you can capture the output from one command as input to another. And this is why many Linux administrators are able to produce really impressive results simply by chaining commands together. For example, consider this scenario. Say you want to grab the output of a log file, remove duplicated lines, and then sort the output. But if you explain to AI what in particular you're trying to do, it can make it simple to generate a command that does what you need. Next, let's talk about desktop files. You can actually use AI to generate these files. Now, if you haven't ever heard of a desktop file before, they're files that end with a .desktop extension, and they're used to launch graphical applications within a Linux desktop environment such as GNOME or KDE. Now, most of the time, you'll never have to work with these directly, since they're often included automatically when you install an app on Linux. For example, if you were to install Steam, then a desktop file to launch Steam will automatically be installed, and that's how newly installed apps show up within your application launcher. Again, you normally never have to mess with these, because most of the time these are created automatically for you whenever you install an app. However, sometimes you may want to install something manually. A good example of this is the Firefox web browser. When you install Firefox with a package manager such as apt or DNF, you'll get an application launcher automatically. However, you can also install Firefox manually as well, completely sidestepping your package manager. One reason why some people do this is because they want to manage an app themselves. In the case of Firefox, you could download a compressed archive of the most recent release and run it from anywhere on your file system. And one of the benefits of doing this is that you'll have access to the latest release of Firefox immediately, rather than waiting for your package manager to update it. In the case of Debian, which includes an older version of Firefox by default, you can run the latest Firefox completely upon release. Of course, there's other apps that you can install manually. Firefox is just one example. The thing is though, when you run something like Firefox from a downloaded archive, you won't have an icon for it within your application launcher. Since you've sidestepped your package manager completely when you install something manually, your desktop environment won't even be aware that you're running Firefox this way. To fix this, you can manually create a desktop file for your downloaded app and still have it appear in your application launcher despite installing it manually. And that's where AI comes into play. In the case of Firefox, you could provide AI with a path on your file system where you've downloaded it manually and ask it to create a desktop file to help you launch it. Then you can save the desktop file in the appropriate place, and then from that point forward, Firefox will appear in your application launcher just like any other application would, despite the fact that you've installed it manually. Finally, tip number 10, and this is where we step away from productivity and have a bit of fun. Using AI, we could generate some humorous responses, or create something completely ridiculous just for fun. For example, consider having AI explain commands to you. If you don't know how to use a command, you can ask AI to provide examples. But this is nothing new. In fact, our first tip covered exactly this. If you want to have some fun, then consider having AI explain a command as if it's being explained by a fictional character. One of my favorite examples of this is to have AI summarize the kill command as if it was being explained by a Klingon. Sometime back, I even asked AI to summarize the ls command as if it's being explained by Regina George from Mean Girls. Fun times. It's completely ridiculous, but I find it hilarious. And there's our video. In this video, we went over some of the ways where AI can assist us as Linux users and administrators, and I hope you found it helpful. If you did, then be sure to click that like button to let YouTube know. Also, I'm curious what you guys might be using AI for. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys are up to. I look forward to reading what you guys have to say. In the meantime though, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.